and we will get started. So today I'll do a brief introduction about me and your team in Central Florida. I'm going to do a kind of an in-depth overview of Industry 4.0, so we're all on the same page, because sometimes people think they know what it means, and they may not have all the right pieces of the puzzle put together. We'll talk about the collaboration opportunities with MACF and FloridaMakes, and then we'll take a few questions. So my background, I'm a business advisor with FloridaMakes. I focus in on Industry 4.0 technologies. I'm a operations and technology consultant. The first half of my career I spent in manufacturing in a variety of different roles. And then the second half of my career, I've been in the technology and operational consulting area. So my entire career has been spent in manufacturing one way or the other, either in manufacturing or supporting manufacturing companies. I have a bachelor's degree in MBA, and I'm a Six Sigma Black Belt. And I'm also the author of a book, I Solve Mysteries, which is an educational book about how to handle large optimization and transformation projects. So something to consider if you're in the Industry 4.0 world. That's a little bit about me. And then you have your local MACF team, Dan Sutter, who's been in the territory many years, and learned a lot from Dan in my short time here. We have Russ, who's joined the team recently, and you got your executive director in Donnie, who's really pulling things together for the MACF organization and members. So here's your local team. If there's anything that resonates with you during the presentation and you want to get in touch with me, reach out to Dan or Russ, and we can schedule a time to talk about how we can help support you in your Industry 4.0 journey. Industry 4.0, or smart manufacturing. We're actually well over a decade now into Industry 4.0. It started with the German government around 2011. So we're well on the way in Industry 4.0 now. Early on, there was a lot of fits and starts. People really weren't kind of understanding how to implement some of these technologies. But over the last decade or so, we've really kind of understood what it takes to really implement some of these advanced manufacturing technologies. So nothing to be worried about. These are now tried and true technologies. So it's something that you should feel comfortable in deploying into your organizations now. So this is just a history of where we've been from industrialization in the world. You know, goes back into 1784, and we've been moving forward ever since. Industry 3.0 was quite a bit of a change. We started seeing, you know, quite a bit of the advanced technologies coming in during 3.0. And then, as you know, the internet changed everything around 2000. It just changed the way we work, and it changed our personal lives. And I would say that that's kind of a key inflection point for when Industry 4.0 really started to take hold. One of the things that I've mentioned, and I want to kind of reinforce, is that every 10 years we get these, you know, evolutionary technologies versus revolutionary technologies that come into the marketplace. So as I said, Industry 4.0 has been around 10 years. But during that time, there have been some kind of key technology changes that really kind of made some of these solutions much more viable in the marketplace. One of the biggest changes was about 7 years ago when in-memory computing started coming into the market. And in-memory computing is where you have all of the hardware and the software and the data all in one place on the chips. So if you think about your personal life and you start looking at the computers or Apple products you've had in your home, about that time you started getting away from the hard drives in your devices, and you started going to in-memory processing. So if you think about that as an enterprise level, at a corporate level, This is where you start hearing about why artificial intelligence and marine machine learning and all of these advanced technologies have really started to take hold in the marketplace. And it really has to do with the speed and the accuracy of in-memory computing. So that's a big turning point for getting a lot of these technologies moving forward. So there are a number of reasons why we hear companies moving to Industry 4.0. I've done this webinar many times, talked to a number of customers. I've been on other Industry 4.0 webinars, and the themes are very consistent. The chronic labor shortage, which is not going away, attracting and retaining the next generation of manufacturing employees, improving operational efficiencies, increasing competitiveness, fostering innovation, and being in a connected world with your customers, your suppliers, and your employees. So these are the things that we hear are really kind of the major drivers around why companies are implementing the Industry 4.0 technologies. So what happens if you don't? Well, the chronic labor shortage is not going away. Everybody's kind of come to accept that. And companies are now saying, okay, if I'm not going to have enough employees, I have to do something differently. So this is where we're seeing a lot of automation starting to hit the marketplace. There's one company we worked with on the west coast of Florida, relatively large organization, and they had 80 employees short in their manufacturing area. And they said, okay, we're done with this. We're going to have to automate. And they're not automating to take jobs away from employees. They're actually automating because they can't find enough employees to run the factories. The other thing is the next generation of employee coming into the marketplace, they're used to doing everything on their phone. They're used to having these technologies at their fingertips. If you don't start upgrading the technologies in your company, you're going to have a hard time first attracting and then retaining this next generation of manufacturing employee. And what happens is, and we've seen this in a number of cases, the company down the road from where you are, who you've known for 25 years, they start implementing these technologies and they start taking your employees. So it's up to you to really understand these are market changes that are going on, and these are the things that are actually happening. So if you don't have labor and you can't attract the next level of labor, how are you going to have operational efficiencies? How are you going to keep improving your efficiency? Companies that are implementing these technologies are doing that. So again, the consequences of doing nothing are pretty great here. And you'll start being less competitive in the marketplace. So the competitors are the people down the street, the people within the state of Florida, around the country, and around the world. So without adopting these technologies, you're going to start feeling the lack of competitiveness in your marketplaces. Fostering innovation, these technologies make people think differently. And when people start thinking differently, they start innovating. So this is one of the major benefits that you see with Industry 4.0. People get innovative. And also finally connecting with your customers, your suppliers, and your employees. You know, customers are now not putting up with people that can't communicate with them correctly. So, you know, long gone are the days of sending emails and faxes and everything. You know, customers are just not putting up with that anymore. And your suppliers are doing the same. So these are all the major drivers of what's happening in the marketplace with people adopting Industry 4.0. And if you don't do anything, then you'll feel the consequences in each one of these areas. So what is Industry 4.0? I've been talking a lot about what that is. These are the 9 technologies that support Industry 4.0. These are the foundational technologies. I'm not going to go through the list on the right because I have a slide for each one of these. But now, if anybody says, what is Industry 4.0? These are the technologies that support Industry 4.0 in the marketplace. Cybersecurity. Everybody hears about cyber attacks. It doesn't matter if you're a small manufacturer, a large manufacturer, medium-sized manufacturer, you are open game for people trying to attack your organizations. And it's not always the real sophisticated actors that use advanced technologies to get into your facilities and your companies. It can be as simple as an email coming in and somebody opening it up, and then your whole network is affected. If you are in the DoD supply chain, you know that the government is now coming out with these certifications that you have to get, CMMC, level 3, different levels of certification. If you do not get those level of certification, you will not be participating in the DoD supply chain in the future. So it's imperative that you focus in on making sure that your organization has the right approach to cyber. We have a large practice in the cyber area and a lot of resources to help people out with their cyber journey. So a couple of things happening in the marketplace. Cyber insurance. If your insurance company comes to you and says, okay, show us your cyber plan, and you look at them with blank stare or deer in the headlight look, that's not going to go over very well with them. And you're going to see the cost of your cyber insurance going way up. So if you don't have a plan, they're going to penalize you with your premiums. The other thing is a lot of customers are now demanding of their suppliers like you to have cybersecurity as part of their contracts. Again, if you don't have a cyber plan and your customer sends out an RFP or an RFQ, and you can't add and address those cyber questions in their RFP or RFQ, you're going to be on the outside looking in. So this is not anything to take lightly in multiple different areas. Number one, to protect your organization. Number two, to minimize the increases you'll see in your insurance here, and also to be able to compete in the marketplace with your customers who are asking for what is your cyber plan. The industrial Internet of Things. These are all the sensors that you have on your machines and other devices that connect to the internet that capture data. This is a very busy area for companies right now, the industrial Internet of Things, because we're moving in more and more into this data-driven society, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The one thing about the industrial Internet of Things and start capturing information is you need to have a plan for the data. You can get overwhelmed very quickly if you don't have a plan for how you're going to manage the data for turning these systems on. So it's imperative to think about the end and what you're trying to accomplish and to make sure that you're doing the right approach to your Internet of Things technologies that you start implementing. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the additional technologies that go along with this. So, fire truck, what does that have to do with the industrial Internet of Things? Well, this is a fire truck from this very cool company on the West Coast here, Pierce Manufacturing, and they make fire trucks. They send them all over the country, all over the world. This fire truck is totally connected to the internet. This is one big IoT device with all the systems and sensors that it has on the fire truck. So you can see from the control panels, it's collecting a lot of data that they send up to the cloud and make that information available to the fire departments, the service companies that service the fire trucks for Pierce, and also the Pierce engineering team to be able to run diagnostics and understanding how the fire trucks are performing. This is also innovative. This is an electric fire truck. So this is a electric powered fire truck that they came out with last year. So a couple of things here, you see the convergence of a lot of different technologies here, but this is basically one big IoT device versus a small sensor. So innovation and IoT and data. Cloud computing. So this is one of the areas where this in-memory computing really started changing how effective cloud computing can perform. You've heard about this over the last 3 to 5 years at a much more rapid pace than before. And that's because this in-memory computing has changed the whole landscape for cloud computing. Now, cloud computing has been around for quite a long time. I was with Oracle, a large technology company, about 20 years ago when cloud computing really was starting to come out. And there were a couple of executives that left Oracle to start a ERP, enterprise resource planning company, software company in the cloud. It was going to be cloud-based. And everybody in the organization are like, what are these guys smoking? Who's going to buy an ERP system in the cloud? Well, 20 years later, it's hard not to find an ERP system in the cloud. So this is an example of the evolution versus the revolution of these technologies. It evolved over 20 years where cloud is just a normal process and technology that we use in not only in our business lives, but also in our personal lives. So cloud computing has been around for a number of years, and you see more and more companies using these in their applications. Edge computing. So one of the things that happened when they started collecting all the data off the devices and the sensors in these large manufacturing plants, they were overwhelmed with data. They're like, whoa, look at all this data we're getting. What are we going to do with this stuff? And they were trying to run real-time analytics on the data in the plants, and they couldn't do that because they were sending it all up to the cloud, and it was too slow to be able to do real-time analytics. So they came up with this middleware architecture called edge computing, where there's actually a physical edge device in the plant that collects all the data, and you run real-time analytics off the edge device. Then they can send that information up to the cloud for the longer-term analytics. We have a couple of solutions that we've found in the marketplace over the last year that use these edge devices. And in many cases, they are very simple, rapid deployment solutions to be able to get you value very quickly on the data that's coming off of your machines. So edge device was put in place to kind of solve a problem around data, which leads us to data. You know, big data for one company is small data for another, and small data for one company is big data for another. The point is, data is the driving force, and we're all dealing with a lot of data these days. So as I mentioned with the IIoT devices, you really have to have a plan for how you're going to manage your data. Manufacturing companies have traditionally been some of the worst companies around managing their data. I don't know how many projects I've worked on over the years, and the first time we ask them, let's see your data, they look at you with this look in their eyes like, data? Yeah, we got a lot of that, but we don't have a way of managing it. And it's really the Achilles heel in a lot of these technology projects. So again, you got to have a plan for your data and how you're going to handle it. Then when you have a plan for your data, then you can use the analytics more effectively. The other thing I've heard over time is, boy, none of these reports are any good. How come I can't trust these reports? Well, it's kind of a simple fact that you don't manage your data very well. So you don't manage data, you don't get good reports. And people have just not invested, particularly in manufacturing, the time and the money to get their data clean, to be able to give them accurate information. So again, if you want to run your business effectively in a data-driven society with high-performing analytics, you got to have a plan on how you're going to do that. A number of the solutions that we found in the marketplace now are kind of a combination package. They come with the IIoT sensors, whether they're a sensor or an RFID device. They take that information, they move it up to the cloud, and then they provide it back to you in real-time analytics for your manufacturing plants. So a number of these solutions, as I've mentioned, are kind of plug and play solutions. They bring the collection, they bring the cloud, and they bring the analytics all to you in a nice little package. So instead of implementing these over months and years, these can be brought up literally in days and weeks. So a lot of changes in the marketplace with what I would call rapid deployment solutions around capturing and analyzing data. Horizontal and vertical system integration. When I first started in doing the Industry 4.0, I wasn't quite getting this. And then as I dug into it a little bit more, I'm like, holy cow, this is the big kahuna in the place. So if you're a relatively good sized manufacturing company, you may have a engineering software that you design your products. And then you may have a product lifecycle management software to manage the life of your products. And then you may have a customer relationship management, CRM system, to manage your sales and marketing. And then you're going to have an ERP system, enterprise resource planning. And under the ERP system, you could have a MES system, manufacturing execution system. And under that, you could have a maintenance management system. And then downstream from the ERP, after everything's produced, you got a warehouse management system. And after that, you got a transportation management system to get the stuff out of the warehouse to the customers. And then you may have a service management system that you use for managing service in the field. So this is not an uncommon technology footprint for a manufacturing company to have within their organization, with all those different systems needing to be connected, both horizontally and vertically, because in each one of those areas, what's going to happen? You're going to have the finance organization looking on top of all this data and analyzing it and looking at how they're going to run the business more effectively from a financial standpoint and a customer relationship standpoint and a manufacturing standpoint. So the full digitalization and integration of these systems is really the nirvana that people are trying to get to. Some places have got there. A lot of places are still have a long way in their journey before they can really get to horizontal and vertical system integration. But this is the road to digital transformation. All right, so those are the foundational technologies for Industry 4.0. Now we're going to move into another set of technologies that are being used in manufacturing facilities. So additive manufacturing and 3D printing. Additive manufacturing is where you're making parts based on applying layers of material. They typically are done in metal and in plastic, versus subtractive manufacturing where you're cutting steel or plastic or whatever. So when I came to FloridaMakes, I was really surprised at how many companies have been implementing additive technologies in the state of Florida. It was very, very well entrenched. And it typically falls into three different areas. The first one is R&D. So instead of making a part in the plant, they have these additive manufacturing devices that create the prototypes. So they can create prototypes at a low cost, try a number of different kind of prototype models. And that's one of the major things that you see from additive manufacturing. Now, these printers have become much more robust. So now it's moved into the production area. So we have a number of companies in Florida that are actually producing their parts through additive manufacturing. So again, that's kind of like the second phase. The third phase is with larger companies, and they use additive manufacturing to make spare parts for maintenance. So instead of going to a supplier and asking for a maintenance part, they get the engineering drawings, put it into the additive manufacturing system, and then they're printing their own maintenance parts right on the shop floor, that being metal or plastic. The other thing they're using this for is built-in kind of supports and frames. So that's another common area for using the additive manufacturing outside of the production area. So again, very well entrenched in the state of Florida. We have some very good companies in Florida that have these solutions available for you. And again, they're used in prototyping, they're used in production, and they're used in maintenance. So three of the primary areas where you see these being used. Augmented reality. This may sound like futuristic, but it's not anymore. So what are companies using augmented reality for? One of the primary areas that people are using this is in field service. So they have augmented reality systems that they deploy into the field. So field service technicians can go into the plant or piece of equipment. It can actually problem solve with the customer right on site with these augmented reality solutions. And all of the information from this is then fed back to an engineer or group of engineers at their home office, any place in the world. And they're actually doing real-time troubleshooting in the field with their clients and the service team in the augmented reality world. You're seeing more and more of these in the marketplace. The other thing that people are doing with this is they're using it for training. So if you know about the institutional knowledge or tribal knowledge in the manufacturing plant, it's all up in people's heads. And as the workforce continues to age and leave the marketplace, we're losing a lot of knowledge here. So what they're doing is they're now taping the actual manufacturing process that somebody's going through in an augmented reality world, and they're using that for training new machinists coming into the department, new employees coming into the company. So augmented reality is going to be one of the leading tools that people use going forward from a training standpoint, capturing the existing process the right way, and then being able to use that from a training standpoint for employees. So we see more and more of these in the marketplace these days. Autonomous robots. So this is a very, very busy area in the world of automation. As I mentioned, we're seeing a lot of automation in the marketplace. And I highlight on the top two different robots. One's a robot and one's a cobot. So the robot is an industrial welder on the left-hand side, on the upper level, and the one on the right is a cobot. So a cobot is a robot that works interactively with an employee. They're used in a wide variety of applications. There are a couple of big players in the marketplace for cobots right now. One of the areas that they're looking at cobots for is repetitive motion work, where if they can put a robot in place and the operator has that robot to work with, or cobot, they're looking at how they're going to reduce the amount of repetitive motion injuries they have in their facilities. And what they're finding is, instead of being afraid of the cobots, the employees are really embracing the use of the cobots. Number one, it makes their job easier. Number two, they're using some advanced technologies that's really cool and innovative for them. So the adoption of these technologies have been very, very positive in the marketplace. The other ones on the bottom are autonomous vehicles. The picture on the left would be a typical example of, say, an Amazon warehouse, where these autonomous vehicles move around the facility, either dropping parts off into their bins or picking parts out of their bins for orders. So some of the more advanced, obviously, warehouses have these autonomous robots going around and capturing all the parts in the facility. The one on the right is an autonomous forklift. So where has there been a shortage? Forklift drivers. So now what you're starting to see are forklifts working as a more autonomous vehicle. So this is a very busy area, hot area in the marketplace right now. And we have some very good contacts in the market that can help any company in wanting to take a look at robots within their facilities. So again, very busy area. Now, those are physical robots. There are also digital robots. So it's called robotic process automation or intelligent automation. Sounds new and cutting edge, but actually this has been around for many years. I did a RPA project and an IA project, in the late 2000s. So the technology has been around for well over a decade. It's just that with some of these new technologies like the in-memory computing, it's going much quicker now. So the RPA, it started in the back office where they were doing accounts payables and AR, accounts receivables. One of the most common ways of seeing robotic process automation in practice is when you're applying for a job. So you go to a company and you go to their website and you upload your resume. So they have optical scanning technology that reads the resume, it formats into the proper format that they want, maybe 50% of the time, but at least it's trying. And then they move that along into their HR system behind the scenes. Intelligent automation is kind of a step up from RPA. Intelligent automation is where you take artificial intelligence, business process management, and RPA, and you combine them into a more focused and intelligent application for doing something. In the finance area, you're seeing this becoming very common for budgeting and planning. So they're using intelligent automation to do budgeting and planning. And now, because of the speed of the technology, they can do multi-scenarios to simulate what the business would look like in the future. So this is a common area you see in finance. In manufacturing, you're starting to see it more if you're doing sales and operations planning, and you're doing some demand planning as part of your S&OP process. You're seeing intelligent automation doing more of the statistical modeling in different variables that you put into the models for your demand plan. And then it's moving down into the production area where they're actually doing production planning with these intelligent automation solutions and detailed scheduling. So from demand plan to rough capacity plan to production plan to detailed scheduling, you're starting to see more and more of these systems come into play in manufacturing environment. So again, this is the convergence of a number of different technologies to be able to automate business processes. Simulation. So simulation has really moved quite a bit into the world of manufacturing and distribution. They are using gaming technologies, which have been around for decades, in simulation opportunities within manufacturing and distribution. If you look at any kind of automation today, any kind of automation project, they are going to have some kind of a simulation package that will show you exactly how the equipment's going to work in a digital world. So these are very common now with all of the automation companies. The picture on the bottom is what's called a digital twin. And that's where you can build a digital version of a piece of equipment, in this case, a compressor. So you can build a digital version of the compressor, put it into the plant digitally and see how it operates to determine whether that compressor is going to get you the additional throughput you want from adding that piece of equipment. We also have some interesting solutions out there that use digital twins from an inventory management standpoint. So one of the big headaches in any manufacturing plant is figuring out where your parts are. So this company has RFID tags and readers that you attach to the products, and they read the location of the product. And then they take and they create a digital twin of your manufacturing plant. And now you can take a look and see on your computer, on your phone, exactly where these parts are situated within your plant. So from an efficiency standpoint, you click on it and it tells you, here's the order number, here's the part, and it tells you exactly where it is within the plant. So, no more getting over on the intercom system and yelling, where's this order, where's this part? With these technologies, you can actually see them within your plant. The one on the top is what they do if they're going to build a new manufacturing plant or distribution center. They set these up in a simulation standpoint. And what they can do is the simulation software can ingest all of the engineering documents and design documents for the different pieces of equipment in the plant. And they can actually run a manufacturing process in simulation with these. So you can see parts coming in at the beginning of the process, going through some kind of machining, parts coming out, being picked up by a robot or a cobot and put into a box, and then going down a conveyor. At the end of the conveyor, the box is sealed and another cobot or robot picks it up, puts it onto the pallet, and then you're going to have an autonomous forklift truck come and slide under the pallet and bring it into the warehouse. And all this can be simulated when they're building a new manufacturing plant or distribution center. The other thing they're using this for is once they get the model built, they can go in and do problem solving of the process. So say you're doing a Kaizen event, 2/3 of the way through the manufacturing process. They can now simulate the problem that you're having. And when you're doing your Kaizen event, you can actually see what it looks like. So people are, much more visually stimulated and using these technologies now to solve real world in-plant operational issues. So again, a lot of different uses for these technologies. And again, a lot of them are based on gaming technologies. So it's very, very interesting. So there's where we are. So these are the elements of Industry 4.0. So I covered the 9 manufacturing elements. So one of the things I wanted to talk about now is, we have this labor shortage and we're trying to find new employees to come into the marketplace. And what are we doing at FloridaMakes and our sister organizations to be able to advance getting people in the marketplace, attracted to manufacturing and trained. So we've created this Advanced Manufacturing Leadership Council. You can see a number of the top-notch companies in the state of Florida are part of this council, and they're working on ways of trying to attract people to come into the marketplace for manufacturing. One of the major initiatives out here is an Adopt a School program. The RMAs around the state now have, training teams put together, committees put together. And this Adopt a School program has worked very well, where a manufacturing company will adopt a school and start working on building a pipeline of young people coming into the manufacturing area. And they go all the way down to the elementary schools. So it's not just at the junior college level or technical college level. They're going in the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools, and trying to build an awareness of these advanced manufacturing technologies to be able to get people interested. And one of the things they're finding in youth, not surprised, when you bring these cobots into the schools, these kids get real excited. When they start running simulations, they get real excited. So they're trying to really build a pipeline of getting young people into the marketplace where they can have an interest in manufacturing going forward and have a leg up in knowing how some of these technologies actually already work. So we're spending a lot of time working across the state and trying to build these programs to be able to get people come into the marketplace. Another organization that's part of the Florida-based Florida Makes network is FLATE, Florida Advanced Technology Education. And this is an organization that works with all the different schools, the universities, the technical schools, the junior colleges, to develop the proper curriculum for people to come into the manufacturing area. So FLATE's been around for many years. Marilyn, who's been the leader, just retired and is a consultant now, but we have another gentleman that's in there leading FLATE. And again, they're really trying to develop the right curriculum in these schools to be able to get people trained properly to come into manufacturing. And one of the ways they're doing this is the Associates Engineering Technology. So there are 2,000 students statewide that are in a AS program in getting a background in engineering technologies that they can come into manufacturing or other fields. But these are some of the programs that the state of Florida is funding and that we're working on really to bring up the level of education with kids, not necessarily wanting to go to the university, but wanting to have practical skills on how to use these technologies in the marketplace. And the last one I'll talk about is the IMT Apprentice Program. So this is a program where you combine work in your manufacturing plant with some online courses to be able to get a certification in the apprenticeship program. Some states have adopted this more aggressively than others. Florida and our team have been spending a good amount of time talking to manufacturing companies. So if you're interested in the apprentice program, reach out to Dan or Russ and see if you can get, one or two of your employees involved with this. There's funding to offset the cost of this. So again, we're trying to be able to develop programs to be able to bring, the technical skills of people up to par, and they can be much more effective in the manufacturing plant. They're finding that, people who go through the apprentice program really stick around and they stay with their employers. So the employee retention goes way up. So this is one of the ways you can train your folks and also have a better level of retention within your organization. So just wanted to talk a little bit about, again, Florida Makes and what we're doing to support all these different manufacturing technologies that are in the marketplace right now from an education standpoint. So now, how do you get started here? Well, the best way is to kind of have somebody come in and do an assessment of your current state. So where are you today? Your current state assessment. From there, we can help you develop a strategy on how you want to implement Industry 4.0. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. You got to have a plan. You got to have a strategy. So we're here to help you be able to put that plan and strategy in place. Now, in the real world, there are problems in manufacturing that have to be solved immediately. So over the last year and a half, we've put together a nice list of Industry 4.0 solution providers that we can bring to you that can solve your operational challenges with these technologies. So again, without a strategy, but without an assessment, you got problems. We're here to help solve those problems with some of the solutions that we've put together in our efforts over the last year and a half. So this is where, if you want to engage with us, reach out to Dan, reach out to Russ, reach out to Donnie, and they'll connect with me, and then we can have a discussion on what's the correct approach to work with you for an Industry 4.0 strategy standpoint.